Okay, I think, we're about 5 minutes into the start time, so I'm just going to go ahead and kick it off. Abigail, looks like you have a private audience at the moment. Maybe some people join a little bit later, but um, I wanted to. So first of all, thanks for joining me. And you're also on with our sales manager staff. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to answering any questions you might have on on the Pro app. So I have a couple quick slides here. And I just want to go over what we're going to cover in this webinar. We'll do a quick intro, which we're in the middle of right now. And I wanted to, well, you know what, honestly, I think because it's just you, I'm going to turn on your audio. If you have a microphone, you can just, we can actually have a conversation here. If we had a larger audience, I wouldn't do this normally, but yeah, if that's all right with you, I'll just click that on. I think you're in, and I'm unmuting you now as well. Are you able to talk at all? Can you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can actually. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. That's no worries. Well, yeah. Well, welcome to welcome to the webinar.
Thanks.
Yeah. So.
Abigail, that's so funny. I've also learned from this because that message went to everyone. Thank you.
Oh, it says it's funny. It says privately on my.
Yeah, that's why I was confused.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, yeah, they interesting. So anyway, yeah. So Abigail, I guess we can just kind of forego the whole kind of like formality of the presentation, I suppose. But I have to show you the name drop slide. So I have a really cool name drop slide because we're used by a bunch of really large medical organizations because they trust us so much. They actually use us in a whole bunch of different capacities, whether it's kind of managing their nutrition programs with their patients or doing actual academic or clinical research. So we're used by these guys, and I've been dying to use this slide in a presentation. This is the first time anybody's seen it. So there you go. You're very lucky. So I'm just gonna go ahead and end the slideshow here. So yeah, Abigail, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, how'd you hear about us?
Well,
What do you do?
I mean, I heard about this program on a webinar, or sorry, not a webinar. We are on a webinar on a podcast. I don't remember now which podcast it was.
Oh,
It was a while ago,
mhm.
and I looked into it at the time. So I guess I don't. I mean, I don't know that much about the program, but it's
Mhm.
from what I looked into it, seemed compelling.
Cool.
And my question, when I had looked into it, was that they um, basically the way I understood it was like there was an app that the patient would use, but
Mhm.
then you have to use another platform to kind of process the data. Is that
So,
right?
sort of. So you're going to have, as a professional, and as a matter of fact, I'll go through this from the beginning. I think this should answer most of those whatever questions you might have right now. So let me do kind of an overview of the actual app itself,
Mhm.
and then I think any questions you might have will fall out of that, and I can answer them as they come. What's your background?
So I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I've up to this point, I've just had patients do kind of diet diaries, essentially like by hand, like on
Yeah, fair
paper,
enough.
on an Excel spreadsheet.
Mhm.
But I would love to kind of streamline that a little bit better so it was a more accurate kind of objective measurement.
Totally, totally. So you haven't. So are you trialing the Pro app at the moment, or have you not used the app at all?
I'm not, I'm, actually, you know, I teach as well, so I just
Mhm.
kind of, can't take on too much until the semester ends,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, yeah.
then I might trial it or, yeah. So I think it's on the list of,
Cool.
I reached out to you guys.
Yeah, fair enough. And where are you based?
Oh, I'm in New York and Connecticut.
Oh, cool. Very good. Yeah, I'm in Florida myself, and the main
Uh,
office is up in Revelstoke, Canada, in BC.
okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, so okay, cool. Well, I'll just start from the very, very beginning. So Chronometer kind of started out as it was a individual app. So it was for individual users. And as we kind of built up, we kind of built a pro app on top of it. So I'm just going to switch over to the individual diary view. There's not any data on this side, but you'll be able to see what this looks like populated by data in just a second. But what we do is we have this platform that allows users to track tons of nutrition information. You can see here just a whole bunch of daily nutrition tracking, protein, minerals, nutrients. We track over 80 micronutrients, and we have we use only the highest quality databases, and so you're going to get a lot of. We just try to build a really good foundation on that nutritional data. And so the pro side, this kind of came a little bit later as people were requesting. We got requests from our users saying, "Hey, I'd love to use this to manage some of my professional or my clients in a professional capacity." And so about 2 years ago and change, we created this professional platform where basically what you can do is, as a pro, you would, and you still have your own personal account attached to this too, if, in case you ever wanted to just kind of play around with it. But
Okay.
what you would do is simply you can fill out a little basic information about the client, and that can all be filled out later. The only essential thing is an email, and what that'll do is it'll send a invite email from us to them. We'll create an account for them, and all they have to do is come in, claim it, and accept your invite, and then you'll have access to their account. And what essentially what that'll allow you to do is you'll be able to see everything that they're logging, and you can set up any kind of like weight goal, nutrient targets, macronutrient targets, and we'll go into some detail on that stuff in a sec, on how to set that up. And then we also have this notion of internal profile. That's a profile that you would control, that no outside user would actually have access to. And that has come up for different types of research that people are doing with this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and so what you see here right now is the client list. This is the users that I've invited. The ones who have not accepted are still in pending verification. But all you have to do to view that is you click on the name of the list. So what you're going to see here is very similar to the individual client view. And right up here, we'll get through all these tabs up here. This is all the different controls that you have. And there's some other control menus up here on these 3 dots that we'll go cover as well. So the first couple things you're seeing here is this is the food log up here. And I have created some custom diary groups for the user to kind of log their food to. Calendar widget just navigates, that's pretty straightforward, and then add food, and all the normal controls are up here. So we recently added a fasting tracking feature. So we'll go over that in a little bit too. But here we show kind of the widget that displays the current fast, and you can create new ones from here and the current one. Then once they have their food logged and everything, and even throughout the day as they're logging things, they're going to be able to see their nutrition progress down at the bottom half of the screen. So we have kind of the basic stuff like calories consumed, calories burned, and that's broken down to a general activity level. If I had logged exercise, it would show up in this gauge too, and your basal metabolic rate. And based on the weight goal that you set for them and whatever their caloric needs are, we calculate the deficit and let them know what that looks like. On the macronutrient target side, we have gauges. If you mouse over any gauge, you can see the kind of the top contributors to that particular macronutrient, or down here, any one of the nutrients that we track. So you'll be able to see where they're getting the various foods they're eating or contributing to. So what you're seeing here with the gauges are basically they're the RDIs. We use those calculated based on height, weight, age, and we set those there. And then if they fall within the target range, they get a green gauge here, and the yellow is underneath the minimum, and then the red is obviously over the maximum set target. We also just launched a feature whenever you mouse over one of these individual nutrients, you get a little bit of an explainer on how they work and what their functions are. So let's see. And then down here at the very bottom, you're going to see some, basically those critical nutrient balances that you want to try to hit and maintain throughout the day. So that's what that looks like down there. Now, one other thing that is kind of it's not actually something I can demonstrate per se, but any user that actually signs up and works with you, so that is on that client list that we saw earlier, they're
Mhm.
actually going to get all of our gold features free of charge, and they'll have that for the duration of what the duration that they work with you. And we're going to go through some of those gold features now. Fasting, for example, is one of the gold features.
Mm.
So, and feel free to just chime in if you have any questions. So.
So, I mean, can you show me what or like for their app, what it looks like for them to
Absolutely.
input?
Oh, and I just noticed we have another attendee, Emma. I'm
Okay.
going to, so Emma, just to bring you up to speed. So we have a fairly low attendance here. So I think what we're going to do is just kind of enable your audio, and you can chat back and forth with us. I'm going to just turn you on right now. Hi, Emma. Can you say something? Okay, well, Emma, if you're there, I've turned on your microphone. You can chat with us if you want. I'd love to do a quick little introduction when you're around. Oh, she's gone. Okay, never mind. So, yeah, okay, so you asked about the app on the phone. So the app on the phone is, we're going to kind of do a side-by-side comparison here. So this is the app on the phone. This is, now I'm signed in with the same account. I'll expand those. So what you're seeing here is the app on the phone. This is the same account. So right now I could be, I'm actually signed in with the user as opposed to viewing the pro on this page here. So I can basically see kind of what my totals are, just like you saw down here. You can get a sense of where you're at for your targets and the fasting widget as well. So the app, I can go ahead and see, let's do this. I'll just add food and biomarkers. So I have the ability to, I'm just going to turn on a cool little feature we have. Allow me to do this. So now I have a whole bunch of different foods that I frequently use here. So what we do is as they log foods, they'll get a kind of a frequency list built up. And then I can kind of just, if I turn multi-add on, I can go ahead and check those out. I can see, yep, that's what I want. I'm going to add those to the diary. And there they are. And, oops. Oh, sorry. I'm going to move this. And there they should be. I have to refresh. And when you log in, you're going to see those things right here as well. So it's pretty, yeah, it's pretty handy because they're able to kind of log food in pretty much any environment. They don't have to be sitting at a laptop. Now the pro side, the actual interaction with the clients, that would be something that you'd have to do on your laptop or desktop. And the reason for that is it gets pretty complicated to manage all of that on a mobile phone. I don't think it'd be a very good experience for anyone doing that at the moment. So that's just kind of a preview of what the app looks like. I'll go into some more stuff as we get through that. So I'm going to move that off screen for a second. And so let's see. Yeah, so then, okay, so now that we've gone through the diary screen, we have the profile. And the profile is basically where a lot of the personal details and weight, like where you would set a weight goal, where you would set your macronutrient targets. That's where this would be. And the body details are pretty straightforward. That's something you get on patient intake. The weight goal would affect your caloric requirements for the week, and you can set it a couple different ways, or you can set some specific targets over here. So the macronutrients target setting is probably the most complicated and the most important. There's a couple ways you can set the client's individual targets. So we have one setting called fixed values, And you can set basically just a baseline energy target, and then their macronutrient targets in terms of the grams that you want them to hit.
Mhm.
And that will, and that's it. I mean, it's very straightforward. There's no real dynamic calculation. On the other hand, macronutrient ratios, which are probably very familiar to you,
Mhm.
um, you can set a ratio here or percentages, and that'll dynamically calculate the user's requirements each day. And so the other thing that happens is if they log their weight and their weight changes, we actually update all the targets based on their newest weight. So if they're making progress, those macronutrient ratios will change, and calorie targets will change over time. Um, and then the ketogenic calculator, I don't know, do you use that much with any
Not
application?
really.
Not really. Yeah, fair enough. So, but just so I'll just gloss over this fairly quickly. We do support basically a different type of dynamic calculation. We calculate based on the lean body mass. So we'll calculate protein requirement based on lean body mass, and then you can set a fixed amount of non-fiber carbohydrates, and then the rest of that would be required from calories from fat. And there's a few other bells and whistles on there, but I'll skip that for now. And depending on how you want them to track carbohydrates, we actually allow a few options here. That can just be total carbs, just everything. Or you can go to track net carbs minus fibers, but you include sugar alcohols, or you can not include them. And we're adding a few more options along, I think, in a couple releases that'll allow you to get a little more fine-grained there. And then down below here, we have the nutrient targets. So all those green and yellow and red gauges that you saw on the diary, this controls the display of that. So I don't know, I mean, I'm sure you've encountered this, but compliance can be an issue with patients. And logging is no different, food logging is no different. And it's, when they see all that nutrition information, it can be pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so this is the place where you can actually go ahead and you can turn a whole bunch of stuff off. If you want
Mhm.
to focus on some very specific nutrients, you can make sure that those are the only ones showing. And this would be the panel where you can control all that. You can also set custom values and targets for any given nutrient here too, in case they're managing a condition or they have special needs. The display tab here, it's pretty straightforward. It's how you would set the,
Mhm.
say you want to show the macro ratios that you saw, or the macro targets that you saw earlier. You can turn that on and off. You can set the diary groups here. You can customize those, label them however you want, and you can also control what the nutrient balances and the highlighted nutrient targets. So it's all pretty straightforward display settings. Now, one of the things that we do, because we have so much data and we try to that's the foundation we try to build on. We have two built-in analysis tools that are pretty helpful for analyzing all this stuff over time, because it's quite a bit of data.
Mhm.
And so these are our charts. I'm going to go through a few of these just to give you some examples of what they can do. So this first chart here is the calories consumed. You can get a sense of how how much calories the user is eating, and what the breakdown of those calories are in macronutrients over time. You can basically go, as long as there's data, you can go back as far as the user's log. It's pretty easy. We also have some, again, I'm sure that food journal that you have people completing is oftentimes intermixed with empty days and days where they've
Mhm.
forgotten what they've eaten or just didn't even bother to log. So we have a few filters that would kind of mimic that. This is a test account. I have tons of data in here, so I can just show all days. But in the case where there's some empty days, we can filter those out by selecting non-empty days. And there's also this notion of completed days. So back in the diary screen, if we click on this three-dot menu, and this is something the user can do himself. This is not, so anything that just about everything that I'm showing you here are things that the actions the user could take on his own account. Now you may want to just set up the macro targets and some other settings, and then have your patient go and do their thing, and then minimal effort on your
Mhm.
side. But You can go as far as planning out all their meals for weeks on end and things like that. I'll give you an idea of how to do that too. But the mark day complete setting, you just click that. It would prevent them from logging anything else for that day, and it would just allow you to filter on those days. That way you can get a good sample of complete days to get a good idea of how they're doing. So we're going to jump back to charts. And you'll also notice, and if the chart has another unit here, you can always just change that. This one doesn't. But you'll also notice there are these dark bands here interspersed in the charts. What that is the fasting, the historic fast. So this account has a few fasts in its history in the past, which we'll show you in a second. These will show up in the charts. So if you have someone, it doesn't even have to be fasting either. You know, if you have someone on chemo, let's say, you can mark the time span that they were on chemo. It's a little hacky because it's all labeled fasting, but it allows you to single out specific time spans where someone's fasting, someone's doing something specific. And then, so the next chart that we have here is just the biometric chart. Any biometric that we support, you can graph here, provided that the user's been logging it, and that includes things that come from devices too. Also, good to know, a gold feature that you'll have access to and your patients is you can create biometrics that we don't necessarily support out of the box. So if there's something special, like some specific blood measurement or something like that, that you want them to track, you can create that here. They'll have it, and they'll be able to track it, and then you graph it against whatever you need to graph it against. The next one is our nutrient chart. So it'll just show you how they're hitting their targets over time. That green area is the range that you want them to be in. Pretty straightforward. The glucose ketone index, that's one used for therapeutic, like a ketogenic diet in like a therapeutic setting for anti-seizure, cancer, things like that. And this is just, we worked with a medical professional to develop this one and the measurements. And these last two charts here are actually ones I've created. So you can basically, anything that we have data for, you can basically create a graph for. So if we go up to manage charts, you can see there's a few built in here that we have. And then you can enable or disable the ones that you want to see. But adding a custom chart is super easy. And you can just add two different axes, and you can choose it, whether you can choose it as a biometric or a nutrient, and you can track pretty much anything you might want. You know? Now, it's all well and good that the data is in here and you can see it and everything, but I don't know how you work with your patients, but oftentimes NDs and MDs often they like to get population level data and do some deeper statistical analysis on it. So one of the things that we allow you guys to do is to just download this raw data into an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file. And so if that is something that you wanted to do with your patients, you can grab all that data and then analyze it in your own way. So then the next tab here is the nutrition report. So it looks a lot like the diary page that you saw in the beginning, but this is a way to look at the nutritional averages over time, because obviously that's what really matters. And you're going to see, this is good for possibly identifying long-term nutrient deficiencies or other problems that might arise. And just like the charts, you can choose any time slice you want. We filter on those days. And we also allow you to include supplements. Any food that's flagged as a supplement, we can exclude, just so you can see how much of their nutrition they're getting from whole foods and things like that. Right. And then if we go to fasting, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward little bit of UI, but you can basically set a new fast. You can set it to repeat on whatever interval you'd like it to. Set a start time, end time, and a length, and you're good to go. And you can see I have a running fast here right now. You can see that, and you also get a view of the fasting history as well.
So like if they're just doing a once a week fast, how would that, does the app like remind them, or does it?
Yeah. Yeah, so what'll happen is what you'll see here is if they have a fast that's, oh, actually, here, let me move this over. So if they have a fast that they are um, working on when they open up the app, or upcoming, sorry, or if it's started or whatever the case may be, it will notify them. And when they're in the app, this is the widget that's going to pop up. So they'll see that, oh, hey, yep, I'm fasting, and they'll be reminded, I suppose. We also send a notification when the fast ends, so they know that they can start eating.
So like that fasting part,
Mhm.
so like let's say they fasted like, Friday to Saturday, but like so on Wednesday that part wouldn't show up or it would
Sorry,
stay.
so say that again.
So like let's say they were fasting like once a week from Friday to Saturday,
Yes.
when they went into the app on like a Wednesday, would they just not see that part?
Yeah,
Or
correct. If yeah, it would just say it would list what their next scheduled fast would be. So they would
okay,
see that it would be coming up on Friday, Saturday.
cool.
Yep. Um, let's see what else we got here. So that's fasting. So the next thing is snapshots. So you can upload photos here. You can, I mean, those can be progress photos. Those could be pictures of whatever you really want, pictures of your food. And, you can edit those and, either the user or yourself can edit those and you can communicate that way if it's something you do. And we also have just some notes. Now, these notes right here are only visible to the pro. So if you want to just keep some notes in our app, that's totally fine. We provide that space here. So there are a couple interesting features that are that I want to show you here. So oftentimes we get asked about how to communicate with users on any given day. Can I send messages? So I'm going to jump to a day in the future, and as I will add that note to breakfast, and then actually, let me see. So I'm just going to drag this over. Now uh, on the app that I'm logged in with, I can see that note. So this is where you could easily just drop the notes on any given day with specific instructions, and they would see that as soon as they logged in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other thing that I want to show you is we have so this is a more basic feature. So this is if you go up to the foods panel, and this is accessible in any individual account and in any pro account, you can actually come in here and create recipes or custom foods that you can then share with your patients. So here's an example of a recipe. You can see here that, oops, I'll just throw that there. You can see here that I've added a few ingredients by, and then I can see what the total nutrition is of an individual serving, and you get all that information down here. You can tag those recipes with either a category and different little tags that will assist in the searching. And then one of the things that you can do, which is pretty interesting with those changes, is you can actually package up these recipes into essentially what are meal plans. So we can go to breakfast 3 here. You can see, so I've packaged that recipe that I have here into this one, along with a few other ingredients, and that makes my breakfast. And I can create a whole day just by putting all these things together into a meal plan. And so then it becomes really easy to, if this is part of what you do, to just go ahead and plan out the users, what they're eating in advance. So let's look at that. So I have a meal plan. I can put that right there. Now, all I have to do, and you actually don't have to do this, you can just instruct your patient to do it. I can click explode recipe. I could say, all right, there's my lunch, there's my dinner, there's my daily supplements and some snacks. And I want to see what I'm eating. Oh, sounds good. I'll make that. And now they have a view of the day of what they should be eating. So that goes pretty quick or pretty easily. Now the other thing about sharing food. So if we have a little action menu up here for any patient page that you're on. So if you can see here, we've got share foods and recipes. So now you have a list here of all the custom foods and recipes you've created, and you can choose which ones to share with this user or all users. And so that gives you some control over who's seeing what and what content you're creating, and who gets it. Then let me see. So that, I believe, and actually, since you're pretty new to the app and you haven't really gotten a chance to use it before, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to show you the settings page here. One of the things that we allow you to do when actually here I can actually demonstrate what this looks like. So we allow you to set up some branding. So what's going to happen here? I'm actually going to go ahead and go to. I'm going to log out. Well, that's interesting. All right, so you set your branding. Now I have a couple pros on this account. So you can see what's happening here is we actually will show your branding when they log into the app. So they know that they're working with you and there's some association there. And it's also going to, we also mention who the professional is in the email as well. So it's not like it's just coming from some random app that you have no idea who it is. And then we also allow you to create a directory listing. So we have over 200,000 app monthly active users, and we provide them with access to a directory of any pro that's using our app. And if you fill out this information here, that can be kind of put up on the page, and they can find that in case they're looking for someone to work with. So yeah, so let me see. And honestly, you know, because you're pretty new to the app, I think a critical piece that I actually skipped over would be actually searching for foods and what that looks like. So let me do that real quick. So I'm going to actually pause real quick. Do you have any questions? I've been talking quite a bit.
No, I mean, it's very comprehensive.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope that's a compliment. So, and as a matter of fact, I see that Emma is joined us again. So Emma, I think I mentioned this before, but it's just you and Abigail on with us. And so I wanted to turn on your audio if you're free to talk, and you can introduce ourselves. And if you have any questions about the app, you can go from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that on, and you're unmuted now. So if you have a microphone on or built into your machine, go ahead and
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, perfect.
Wonderful. Emma, my name is Spencer. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Cronometer, and you're also on with Steph, our sales manager.
Hey, how are you?
So I'm curious, what kind of professional background do you come from? Hi, everybody. This is Spencer here. I'm actually recording over the audio of the rest of the video. What happened was just after this point in the video or in the webinar, my audio cuts out and you can no longer hear anything that I say to anybody in the webinar. So it's just a bunch of very, very out of context comments going forward. So what I'm going to do is there is just a little bit more on the video here that I want to show you. What ended up happening was Abigail dropped off after I answered the rest of her questions, and then I basically went and repeated the things that I was talking about with Abigail, but I kind of went through those with Emma. So there's not a whole lot of new content after this point in the video, except for going through in detail how our search how the search function works in the app. And so I wanted to just kind of narrate you guys through this since my audio is down. And once we get through that, that'll be the end of the replay. And again, if you have any questions, you can email us at sales@cronometer.com, and we'd be happy to chat with you. This is our food search dialog that'll appear on the web app. And what you're going to see here is the list of most frequently used foods by that particular user. And what happens is, as the user logs their food over and over, we build that list. And when they're a new user, they just have a list of the most popular foods on our website. So we keep track of that, and that's what they'll see by default. In the right-hand column, you see I'm mousing over the icons next to those foods. And those icons represent the quality of the data for any given item shown in the list there. Now, the lab kind of beaker, the red beaker there, that denotes a lab-tested food that has tons of data. So when you click on it, and down where I'm highlighting with the mouse there, you can see that it has about 76 listed nutrients, and it also tells you which database it's from there too. And that's a ton of information, and that means it's a high-quality food entry. So you can choose any serving size that you want. That's provided by the data that we have. And you'll note there's a star next to the food title there. That you can click that area there on any food to mark it as a favorite. And that way it'll show up in the favorites tab. And we'll get to a description of that in just a second. And if we click on the favorites tab, you can see that the foods I've marked favorites show up there. So it's a way to just quickly access commonly used foods. Now, the Common Foods tab, this is where we have all the lab-tested food items. And we encourage users to use this tab because this is where they're going to get the best data. So at this point, Abigail asks a question about how a user would enter a food that we don't have in our database. If they have something that they bought that they're not sure about. So I described the process of creating food specifically with our barcode scanner. So our barcode scanner, if you scan the label, not only do you scan the barcode, and what will happen is it'll tell you whether or not that food's in our database. If it is, great, you can log it right away. But if it's not, we'll ask you to take a picture of the label itself, so the brand name thing, something like that. And then what our app will do is actually populate the nutrition information from the label into the food in our app. So you actually don't have to type it all out. Previously, this is something that had to be entered manually. So we've kind of cut down on the effort there for anybody who wants to create foods for themselves from packaged items. So that's kind of the nature of the discussion that ensued. And so there's a solution, at least, for packaged foods with barcodes. When it comes to other places like restaurants or other home-cooked meals when you're outside your house, those are still pretty tough to track if you don't know what you're eating entirely. So that's still a challenge. So we continue here with just talking about the food search on the various tabs. You can see the remaining tabs here are supplements, brands, and restaurants. Those are just some pretty well-known menu items on restaurants, brand names, and foods that are flagged as supplements. And finally, on the custom tab, that's where you're going to see all the custom foods that you've created in the food editor or the recipe editor. And you're also going to see any food or recipe that a pro has shared with you, or we also have a friend system in the app. So if another user invites you to be a friend, it doesn't have to be a pro relationship or anything like that. You will then be able to see all their custom foods here as well. So there's a lot of options for sharing recipes and foods between accounts. And that about does it for the food search portion of our little Q&A. And so I just wanted to kind of walk you guys through that because I realized I didn't cover that in the beginning of the webinar, even though Abigail was brand new to the app. I was expecting some people with a bit of experience using the app. Maybe they've used it personally, or at least they were a couple days into their trial. So that being said, that's the end of the webinar here. I go on to chat with Emma about what you know, what her use case, which is similar, and then it's just kind of rehashing the same stuff. So I'm going to end it here. I really appreciate everybody who kind of joined in for the replay. And again, you know, come email us at sales@cronometer.com, and we'd love to talk to you more about Pro. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.